Acknowledge the councillors who are in attendance, Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Chung, Councillor Yu, Councillor Oliver, and Councillor Aiello. I think I've got everything. Welcome to Fort William First Nation Chief Peter Collins, and thank you all for being here. And thank you for your patience. I had on Friday a few calls from the media relative to Mr. Sinclair's report, Senator Sinclair's report. And to be quite honest, I simply had not had enough opportunity to go through it. And I didn't feel like I was in a position where I would be able to, in a full way, answer your questions that I thought might have been coming in regard to the report. So I asked if you didn't mind waiting until Monday, and we spent the weekend having a chance to go through it. Certainly I felt like I needed the time. We confirmed today we did get an advance copy, I think, the day before, but it's a pretty fulsome report. So I just needed a bit more time. And that is plain and simply why we have asked you to come today, so that I can, speaking as the mayor, and to be clear, I'm not speaking as a member of the Police Services Board here this morning. I'm speaking to you as the mayor of Thunder Bay and not on behalf of the Police Services Board. As many of you will know, Senator Sinclair's work began July 21st, 2017 and concluded October 31st, 2018, approximately 15 months of work. And Senator Sinclair had asked for 2 extensions in March and August of 2018, and both of those extensions were granted by OCPC, the Ontario Civilian Police Commission. His report was made public, as you know, on Friday, December 14th, 2 days after Jerry McNeely's report from the OIPRD, 7 or 8 weeks after the municipal election, and 6 weeks after he concluded his work with the 2 extensions. My focus today is not on any individual recommendation. I'm here speaking as the mayor, and it's only to talk to the citizens and the taxpayers of Thunder Bay and to repeat what we see as the real financial consequences of Senator Sinclair's recommendations. That's what today is about. As you know, Senator Sinclair's work was to look into the competency or the lack of competency of past police service boards or the board. I'm not sure how far back he looked. And if you're uncertain as to exactly what his work entailed or was to entail, the terms of reference for Senator Sinclair's work are contained in the report. You can avail yourself of that as you see fit. Clearly, Senator Sinclair's work was retrospective, looking backwards in time on the competency of the work as the employer of the police service of the past boards. As you're also aware, a new police service board with 2 new members, municipal, and 1 former member as a municipal appointment, Don Smith, were just sworn in a short time ago, and obviously were not the subject of Senator Sinclair's work. As mayor, I took my seat as allowed by statute, and Westport Councillor Kristen Oliver was nominated to the board by council. Senator Sinclair, hired by the Ontario Civilian Police Commission, has now filed his report with 32 recommendations, all received and accepted by OCPC. It would be the decision of the Police Services Board of Thunder Bay whether to implement some, none, or all of the 32 recommendations. As you are aware, our board, our local board, no longer has that voice, no longer has that control or decision-making ability, at least for the foreseeable future. Before I get to the main remarks regarding Senator Sinclair's report, I just want to say that Senator Sinclair and Mr. McNeely's reports do not represent a starting point for this community on Indigenous relations. And I offer my congratulations, and I have on a number of occasions already, to the citizens or to the corporation of the City of Thunder Bay for much of the work that they've already done to show leadership and effort to work on issues of importance to our Indigenous partners. They have signed a statement of commitment to First Nation youth and families. They have a declaration of commitment to urban Aboriginals, a friendship agreement with Caribou Lake, an accord on anti-racism and inclusion. These were all done before my time here as mayor, and there are people in the room that could probably speak in a more fulsome way to the details of what is contained in those agreements. And I congratulate all partners and for having done that work. The city has also established an Aboriginal liaison office, 2 or 3 employees in that office. The city has an anti-racism committee. The city gifted Grandview Lodge to Matawa First Nation for a learning center and a residence for young Indigenous children coming into the community for education. I think a fantastic partnership, fantastic step forward by the city. And we have on our police service 13% Indigenous officers already on the First Nation, on our local police service. As well, the federal and provincial governments have been trying to help. I recall a joint provincial federal funding announcement last year that committed $10 million to NAN for student safety planning. All to say that people and governments have been working. They've been trying hard to find a path forward and to create a better relationship. Again, these reports are not the starting point on this work. To the report. Just a couple of comments, remembering this is about potentially the consequences democratically, as I see them, and financially for our corporation. Senator Sinclair has recommended the appointment of an administrator, and that recommendation has been accepted by the Ontario Civilian Police Commission and has been put in place. As such, Senator Sinclair has effectively, in my opinion, dismissed a brand new board, 2 of its members both publicly elected in a municipal election, myself as mayor and Kristen Oliver as West Fort Ward councillor, pushed to the sidelines. You could say ignoring the voters of Thunder Bay who quite frequently spoke in the election about crime and taxation. Both of those issues are affected by this decision to appoint an administrator. As mayor, I do not have a vote. Kristen Oliver does not have a vote. Don Smith, who was nominated by Council of Thunder Bay and appointed by Council, has resigned. No vote. And the current chair also has no vote. The sole vote is given to the administrator, Mr. Lockwood, who was part of Senator Sinclair's team to table the report. Mr. Lockwood is the administrator. He is the only vote on the board as we stand here today. Mr. Lockwood's, and this has just changed, salary was to be paid by you, by all of us. His salary was undetermined at this point. His term, as the report states, was to be up to a year, and they had reserved the right for his term to be extended, again impacting cost. I'll speak a bit to this in a moment because we've just had a change in that regard, a very positive change out of that. As I read the report, as the only vote, also the administrator can choose or not what, if any, of the recommendations to implement, with the costs being borne by the City of Thunder Bay taxpayers. This is not passing an opinion on the recommendations, if they're good, bad, or indifferent. This is about the costs associated with the consequence of the implementation of those recommendations. All board members are expected to receive training and be advised. And this is important because until the training is completed, I don't get a vote. And when I and others have successfully completed our training, as I read the report, the training package is not even developed yet. How long before I can vote? Because I can't vote until I've completed my training. And what will the impact or lack of cost control have been to our taxpayers? The policing budget is the single biggest line item in our city budget. The training package that I'm expected to take has not yet been developed. I don't get a vote back. Kristen Oliver doesn't get a vote back until we've completed our training and the package isn't developed yet. I do not know why I and others could not have been allowed to serve and to vote while receiving any training necessary. And I'm more than open to taking any of the training that's been recommended in the report. Why couldn't the administrator have been an advisor, not the decision maker? We're a new board. And as well, the administrator will have and be in a position as the only vote to deal with not only the recommendations in Senator Sinclair's report, but also the recommendations that are in Jerry McNeely's report. Recommendation 41 recommends that the city not reappoint any members of past boards. In my opinion, this has taken away council authority. A representative with 10 years experience chose to resign, a member who was nominated by Thunder Bay City Council and elected to this term by Thunder Bay City Council, effectively removing the authority of this council to make the municipal appointment. You will recall during the election I spoke about, given that our board was under investigation, and I mentioned this several times during the municipal election, I believe that it was only my thought that they should have deferred the hiring of the new chief to the new board. The board of the day did not take up my suggestion, and that's fine. They were completely within their authority to move forward as they did. I just believe that if you're under investigation and you don't know what that report is going to say, why would you still be allowed to move forward with the hiring of the chief? Senator Sinclair obviously is very critical of the board, as you have seen. I would expect that he knew months ago that the report was going to be damning, and yet he allowed the board to go forward with the hiring of the new chief. My point is this, that if a past member of the board is no longer okay to be on the board going forward, why would that board have been allowed to go forward with the hiring of the new chief? I want to make this point very clear, and I said it during the municipal election. My suggestion to defer the hiring to the new board was in no way, is not today, not at that time, a reflection on the interim chief at that time and the new chief now. The point was simply that if the board is under investigation, we did not know at that point what the results of the report would be. Why would you have allowed that to go forward, or why would the board have done it on their own? As well, the appointment of an administrator has, and again, I'm not certain on this point, but I believe so, given away control of the hiring of the deputy chief. You don't have a vote. The Police Services Board is the employer, or is supposed to be the employer, of the police service. They hire two positions and two positions only, the chief and the deputy chief. Again, it may be that this new board will not be able to be involved on behalf of their taxpayers in the hiring of either position. In the end, publicly elected new board members have been pushed to the sidelines for an undetermined length of time. And we have lost our ability, at least potentially, to have any input or control into the recommendations, into the report, and the costs to the taxpayers that may result from the decisions of the administrator. And I simply felt the need to share with the public some of what may be a consequence of this report, speaking as the mayor. As I mentioned earlier, there are several examples of good faith work and effort on the part of the City of Thunder Bay and the Thunder Bay Police Service. I mentioned already the fact that the Thunder Bay Police Service has 13% Indigenous component. I haven't mentioned that it's my understanding that the Thunder Bay Police Service has already been for some time visiting reserves to try and enhance partnerships and create relationships. They've had a diversity in policing project in place starting many years ago. We all want to improve the lives of the people we represent, and I'll do whatever I can as mayor to help advance that process. We will not always agree. That should not be expected and understood, but this should not be seen as an impediment to progress. It took decades for us to get to this point, and it will take time to reconcile all of our challenges. But only with continued partnership and effort and solutions from all parties can we move forward together. That concludes my remarks. I will simply just add one thing, that just before we came in today, the administrator, Mr. Lockwood, came in. We had a short meeting with him. He confirmed for me a couple of things that I think are very positive, and I'm happy to say that they've changed, happy to see that they've changed already. One being that he has confirmed for us today that the Ontario Civilian Police Commission will be responsible for all of the costs associated with his position as the administrator. Don't know what those might have been. They could be $200,000, it could have been $1 million. But he's confirmed that the City of Thunder Bay taxpayers, excuse me, will no longer be responsible for those costs. I mentioned to you the requirement to do the training, and as I mentioned, I'm more than happy to take the training. But it concerned me that the training package, as the report states, was not even completed yet. It was not in position, it was not there. That would impact how long it would be potentially till I would have a vote, till Kristen Lockwood would have a vote. That apparently has changed. Mr. Lockwood seemed to imply that something will be in place in short order, and his language is that he believes that it will be sooner rather than later until or before his work as the administrator is concluded. That's all better news than we had on Friday. We didn't know any of that on Friday. So it appears that they are today a bit more acutely aware potentially of the challenges this faces and creates for the citizens of Thunder Bay. Remember, please, I'm here today talking about the inability of democratically elected people to have influence in this situation and the costs of the recommendations. I'm not passing judgment. The OCPC has accepted the recommendations. We accept the recommendations, and we'll do our best to work through them. That's not what today is about. This is about the cost consequence potentially to the taxpayer. Thank you all for being here, and if you like, I'll take a few questions if you want.